Hi, friends. Nikki here, Fresnow. I've got two special guests with me, Dr. Robert Wolf and Mr. Simon Hogan. The topic of our conversation today is going to be lifespan, health span. And we're going to be focusing on many things. First of all, I'd like to introduce my friends who I recently met in my Toastmasters group. So, Robert, why don't you say a few words here?
Thank you, Nikki. I'm Dr. Robert Wolf. I trained at Stanford University, and recently I've become very interested in longevity and my own journey to get 10 more strong, robust years, even though I'm now over age 65.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Simon Hogan. I have a degree in food and nutritional sciences from Fresno State and have been a nursing home administrator for the last 10 years. I've worked cumulatively in the nursing home industry for 20 years overall and hope to share some of my findings and experience in that field today.
Okay. So, friends, I'd like to say that what we have some great stuff that only in recent years I found about. And contrary to what we may feel, we have the capability right now to have not only extended lifespan, but extended quality. Okay, for most Americans, half are dead by 78, 85% of us are gone by 83. But what if you could live to 110, 120, and not only are you have years behind you, but you have health, you have quality. Wouldn't that be awesome? And that's what we're going to briefly touch on here with this podcast. Now, in order to get into that, we have to take a look at some things that may stop us from achieving those. So, anyway, Robert, tell us, you're a doctor. Tell us some things that you have experienced as far as dealing with patients. What are you seeing out there?
When we talk about lifespan, really the most important thing is health span. That you feel well, that you can do the things you want to do, that you have a purpose in life that is driving you forward. In my particular practice, as an eye specialist, I repeatedly see patients who have lifestyle-related problems. Their sugar content leads them to diabetes. Diabetes leads to diabetic retinopathy, where there's bleeding in the back of the eye. I've seen young people age 22 going blind from their diabetes because of lifestyle.
Wow. Age 22. That's and this is all avoidable.
For the most part, it can be controlled and avoided not only by lifestyle, but also by following a doctor's recommendations, paying attention to your health, paying attention to your blood sugar and your own body.
Just off the top of your head, what percentage of the patients or population would you happen to know have complications with, diabetes, blood sugars?
Yeah, that's a good question. For the patients that have problems when their blood sugar is above certain levels, 100 should be the normal fasting blood glucose. But when the sugar is high and low, it damages the small blood vessels inside the eye. It's called the pericyte. The small blood vessel is nourished by this cell. When this cell is damaged, it blocks the blood vessel. It sends out a signal in the back of the eye that says, help, I need more oxygen. New blood vessels form. These break open and bleed. So we normally don't see that process until about 10 years has gone by. So this could be in a type 1 diabetic or a type 2 diabetic. The problem is many times they're not diagnosed in a timely fashion. By the time they're presented to an eye clinic with blindness and bleeding, they have already had diabetes uncontrolled for 5, 10, maybe longer.
Wow. Before I looked at diabetes, I just thought, my blood sugar's high. Maybe I got to pop a pill, maybe take some insulin. These complications, I never really, this makes so much sense. Simon, you are involved in various care facilities. Can you share with us what type of, the people who are in the care facilities? Because my impression was that these were people that were maybe last 6 months of life or a year? You know, grandma who's like 80 something years old and stuff. Could you share with us?
Absolutely. When I first started in the industry 20 years ago, I would frequently see people in their 80s, 90s. They were the sweet little grandma, grandpa that you would envision for being in a nursing home. What we're seeing now are people in their 40s and 50s. They're really facing these complications that Robert alluded to, with high blood sugar, diabetes, and complications are associated with their disease conditions. This was not commonplace and still should not be commonplace in nursing homes. I think some of it we're seeing because the benefits that the government has provided are being opened up to people earlier on, perhaps, who have had histories of incarceration, homelessness, or being unhoused, and these disease conditions that we've kind of touched on at this point. But it really is something that is avoidable, as Robert has said. Like, I think with lifestyle changes, with following the directions of a physician, these things can be managed, and these things really should be managed. Our healthcare system really isn't designed to support people at this age and then for this degree of time. When you see people in their 40s and 50s, you can expect that they're going to live a longer period of time with that disease condition if it's managed as it should be in a nursing home. But really, people shouldn't be living in nursing homes in age groups that are really considered prime time in life. So this is something that we really should be working towards, and there are steps that you can take that will help to ensure that this is not a complication for you going forward. But yes, it's been quite frightening, it's been a little disheartening, and really our healthcare system is not designed to have this kind of strain.
This brings up a really important point, I think, and that is the medical care system is not designed for health care. It's designed for sick care, dying care, and disability care. So when you allude to people in their 40s and 50s in a nursing home for the rest of their life, in many cases, it's because they've had a huge medical insult to which they cannot overcome. They have a disability, whether it's a stroke at age 35, which I've seen patients, or whether it's a heart attack in the 40s to someone who should be robust and strong and living well. With these kind of preventable disabilities, preventable illnesses, we need a whole new paradigm shift of not sick care, but health and wellness care.
Wow. You know, when you guys mention people in their 40s and 50s, in my mindset, you know, you become an adult. You know, my idea is you become an adult at 18, but some people now, newer generations, say not to 30 or later. But when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, these should be your prime working years. These should be times when you're doing your career. This is the time when you should be raising your families. And what you're describing, you know, if you're when you're an individual and your health goes bad, it's not just you. It's your family, friends, everybody around you. And that's assuming that they stay with you. What if they abandon you?
And we do frequently see that, Nikki, especially with in nursing homes. You know, naturally, when people enter nursing homes, there's a sense of loss, you know, that people go through. There's a grieving process that's experienced by the people that are becoming nursing home residents. There's a loss of connection with community. There's a loss of independence. There's a loss of health. And all of these things really take a toll. But it's much harder. It's magnified when family members, when there's, you know, community members don't want to have anything to do with these people that have essentially been ostracized through this poor management of health. And it's something that is really preventable. I really plead with people, you know, this is something that is totally preventable.
Simon, I think you're talking about the burden of disease. that when we don't pay attention to lifestyle, we don't pay attention to diet, exercise, having restful sleep, having purpose in life, then the years in which we could be productive, that we could make contribution to society, that we could be giving back to our family and enjoying our lives, that burden of disease and disability just not only damages our life, but all around us. And the burden is so severe, then family members cannot pick that up. And then these patients will end up in a nursing home, would you say for the rest of their life, or do you see many of them discharged?
We do see people that are occasionally discharged, but oftentimes they're people that become residents of the system, essentially going from places that will provide this kind of support, whether it's more on the residential care. If they're able to transition to a lower level of care, they can go to board and care if they're also able to maintain some degree of independence. But really, it's whatever the current system can provide. And that's what people really stay essentially a part of. So, it does call for the need for reform on a lot of different areas, a lot of different levels, as far as, what we can provide to allow people to live independently and hopefully once they've achieved a certain state of health, maybe being able to meaningfully contribute to society as a whole. But this is something that, again, is definitely in the early stages. And as Robert said, the system is really set up for sick care management, not health care. So there are some additional steps that we'll need to take to ensure that we can ensure members of society who have been able to discharge from this level of the care can be, again, meaningful contributors to it.
Nikki, do you think it's the job of the physician to do the preventive care, or do you think there's a onus of responsibility on each of us?
Well, I'm taking my own personal responsibility for myself. One thing that shocked me is that I did a quick survey to see because I'm 65 myself, what percentage of Americans are not on any medications. And I was shocked when the number came back at like 11%, because that means 89% of Americans are on age 65 plus or on various lifetime medications. So we literally have a nation of drug addicts, and not the fun stuff. Yeah, not the fun stuff. So for myself, I remember reading from various doctors I've seen online, Dr. Attila, Dr. Gabriel Lyons, Dr. Eric Berg, and I have made a thing for myself. I've got what I call the 4 horsemen. Number 1, muscle loss, sarcopenia for the medical geeks, metabolic syndrome, and cardiovascular disease. And they are so interchangeable. It's not a matter of one's 2 and one's 3. They can go either way. And then the last one, of course, is cancer. Now, I figure if I take care of my first 3, I take care of my strength, I keep my metabolism efficient, control my cardiovascular, by default, I'll cut my cancer risks in half. As far as cancer, I'm looking at shifting to a low-carb diet, periodic fasting, and something that has caught my attention is there's 2 schools of thought I'm seeing right now as far as cancer prevention. One is starve to cancer, i.e. the so-called Warburg effect, because cancer feeds on sugars. The other is that cancers are various viral type things. Well, I'm saying, look, for me, it's not either or. I can do both at the same time. So I'm definitely looking. I'm 65, but I feel pretty good, and I'm shooting for that 110, 120. Back to you, Robert.
So, Nikki, you're taking responsibility for your own health. You're wanting to become educated and see what you can do to move that longevity curve to the right side so you have more robust years. Is your physician guiding you in this process?
I'm doing a lot of this on my own. To be honest with you, let's say I've been less impressed by the health system. I get referred to a dietitian, and it's like they don't break things down. It's sad. I've turned my whole diet upside down, and I'm in a process of I'm taking leaps of faith. If things make sense, then I'm doing things. But then again, I have motives. I got grandkids. You know that when I go to the park, I'm the only grandparent I notice that actually plays with my grandkids.
Maybe you're the only one who feels good enough to do that. Simon, would you like to tell us a little about nutrition, because you have advanced training in this?
Sure. I will give a very, very simple guideline when it comes to nutrition. This is something that I used to do because I was a personal trainer for 15 years. And in working with clients, there was one very simple guideline. Well, there were a couple of them, but a couple that I can offer today. First one is committing to not eating anything that is ready to eat from a packet. It's something, if it's something that you can eat naturally, like apples, like you can eat those, right away. That's easy. I mean, anyone can make the choice to do that.
Sorry, but, Simon, why are you anti-package?
I'm anti-package because oftentimes the things that are coming in a package are very, very processed. They assimilate to blood sugar very quickly. These are things that are often laden with preservatives and oils and things that our body cannot really properly metabolize. So anything that really, if it's something that's in a packet, and it's usually several steps from its point of origin, like wheat that becomes ground wheat, that becomes flour, that becomes something that's blown through a really fine spout to make it ultra refined, and then ends up as Twinkies on the shelves. These things, I mean, people have made jokes about Twinkies for years. Just like they've survived the things that would survive a nuclear holocaust. But nonetheless, these things, and because they're so laden with these preservatives. And when you think about putting these things into your body, it's the body doesn't know what to do with them.
I'm sorry, why are you anti-preservative? The government tells us these are safe in small quantities.
I would say that that's probably not true. And I think most of the findings, or a lot, well, maybe not all of it. It depends on who's doing the study, obviously. But it's something that really, if it wasn't there from the plant origin, if it wasn't there from the original point or the original source from which it's brought, if it wasn't there, then why are we adding it? It doesn't need to be there.
Are you talking about poisons to kill bacteria, mold, and fungus in the package?
That's part of it. It's also to preserve its palatability, it's preserve its freshness. But these things, just because they preserve their freshness, does not necessarily mean it's doing anything beneficial for the body. So going back to that, making the commitment to not eat things from ready to eat from packages. These things, like I said, the body doesn't always know how to process them. So you just committing to eating things that you don't need to, that aren't ready to eat from the packet. Your body will take a longer period of time to digest, to metabolize, but can really truly get the nutritional benefit from.
Simon, you mentioned nutrition. Could you clarify things? There's a lot of misconceptions about fats and oils. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, really, fats, we break them into two areas. Like obviously, the good fats. Good fats are the olive oils, the avocado oils, the things that we found to be very nutritionally beneficial for people. Provide a great deal of satiety, or keep you from getting hungry, and avocados are a great example of this. Like obviously high calorie, but they're designed, like we should really ideally consume them in amounts that are not necessarily overloading the body on a calorie level, but they're still providing the great nutritional value. And then the bad fats, the hydrogenated oils and the monosaturated fats, those things that are found more in the artificial foods and the ones that I was talking about that might be ready to eat from a package.
Can you tell a little bit about monosaturated and polysaturated These are chemistry terms and maybe foreign for most people.
Monosaturated are things that are singularly saturated. Usually, say butter is a good example. Monosaturated fats are generally solid at at room temperature. Things like lard and butter, those are, and I think beef tallow, those are generally in their solid form at room temperature. A polyunsaturated would be something like a olive oil, which is generally liquid at room temperature. So they're like the saturation refers to their ability to solidify as well. So like I said, so the monosaturated small they're generally chains that can link together and solidify very easily. Polyunsaturated have longer chains and they're not able to solidify at room temperature nearly as easily. But when we think of these, you also think of when you think of those being ingested, how does that affect the body? Like how does it affect cholesterol levels? Well, polyunsaturated, like the olive oil and again like the avocado oil, tend to be more easily they're a little bit more free form in the blood. They don't solidify as easily in the blood vessels versus monosaturated, which may more easily do so. And this can also be adversely affected in positive ways by the kind of training you're doing, by the kind of physical activity in which you're engaging. All of that does help.
Simon, I've heard a lot of good things about fish oils, and myself, I've heard that, hey, there's cod liver oil, there's krill oil, and there's wild-caught salmon oil. Now, for me, I take all three because I heard that, I guess there's a blood level of EPA and DHA. Some of these are ridiculously long terms, but the average American is in the 4 to 5 range, and the average Japanese is something like the 8 to 10 range because their diet, and they're eating a lot of these cold fish. And what I'm seeing popping up, that if that one change could potentially add about 5 years to a person's life. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I really... obviously with the alluding to the Japanese, the Okinawans, they're people that do consume a lot of these oils from their natural food sources, and as such, you reap the benefits to the health in terms of longevity and increased health span. These also provide antioxidant, and they do provide anti-inflammatory properties as well, which helps with joint movement. It makes it more likely that we're able to preserve movement as a result. There's more pain-free movement that's involved, and obviously, the more you're able to move, the better your quality of life really is going to be. The more easily, the more pain-free you can do this. It's going to promote your quality of life. It's going to add years to your productivity. It's going to be able to do so many good things on so many levels for you.
Simon, now I remember for years they said, we only need 50 grams of protein per day. Yet now I'm seeing various sources coming out saying we need probably close to about a gram of protein per pound of body weight. What are your thoughts about protein consumption?
My thoughts, and it's kind of funny, I was looking at one of my old nutrition books, and it was from the early 2000s. And the food guide pyramid was something that was promoted at that time. The ADA was very, very big on having 6 to 11 servings of grain per day, and I think at that time we were being told to promote 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which I even at that time was vehemently opposed to my instructors about. And I had a formula where I would tell people, you estimate your body weight, you estimate your body fat, and then really focus on feeding your lean mass. So if you weighed 200 pounds and you had a 20% body fat, then you would be at 160 pounds of lean mass. and really focus on getting 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass, so that you're feeding that metabolically active portion of your makeup. And this is what I thought as being optimal. I tried it on many of my training clients at that time. They did wonderfully with it. I tried it on myself. It worked. I was able to eventually, at one point, go to around 10% body fat as a result of doing that. And I really think this is something I've heard Dr. Lyon before speaking, and she I believe promotes something of a similar whether it's per pound of body weight or per pound of body mass that's lean. But I really see this as being definitely crucial to maintaining health into the later years.
One of the challenges we see for longevity and aging is how well the body absorbs protein. When we're young, the whole system is working very well. However, after age 40, lean muscle mass is lost, maybe 1% per year. From age 40 to 70, the typical person will lose 30% of their muscle mass. So with less absorption, the Stanford Center on Longevity recommends you need to have more protein in your diet. So instead of 40 grams of protein for maybe a 150-pound person, I'm trying to get between 100 and 120 grams of protein. So I actually count my proteins every meal. Nuts usually have 6 to 8 grams of protein. So if I have 3 different nuts or seeds on my cereal in the morning with a soy milk, then I'm trying to get between 25 and 30 grams of protein every meal. What's very interesting is until recently, I was starving before lunch, starving before dinner. So I'd wolf down a couple cookies, 2 or 3, just to get my sugar to spike a little. And then I'd have my meal. And what I found was I was getting inflammation. My gums were inflamed. I was getting rash, low back pain. And in beginning to understand and research longevity, I reduced the sugar dramatically. So now before lunch, when I'm hungry, I'll have maybe a third of a cup of peanuts or cashews. And it's really helped with my craving for sugar because the oil is giving me a longer duration of calories and I'm more satisfied. So before lunch and dinner, now if I have some nuts, I feel better. My gums have cleared. There's no inflammation. My rash is cleared up and my low back pain is completely vanished. Ooh. Would you like to comment on nuts and seeds, Simon?
Not really much to add as far as that's concerned. Yes, I think the other additional benefits are addition of elements like magnesium, and which helps with muscle relaxation. Also adding to potassium. Both of the potassium, not so much calcium, but working with the other dietary elements there. These things that help to improve muscular contractility. And again, contributing to your ability to use muscles for an extended period of time, and in doing so, being able to promote training, and then thus being able to promote your protein uptake. By doing so, like the more you're able to stimulate your muscles with movement and resistance training, the more you stimulate your body to take up that protein that's there and more efficiently utilize. So as far as adding nuts and seeds, yes, great way to get magnesium, great way to get these other trace minerals, and great way to improve that resistance of hunger for a longer period of time.
It's funny you guys are mentioning hunger because I used to be on a much more higher carb diet, and what I would find is that if I didn't eat, I would feel like lightheaded and I'd be like bonking till I ate something. But since I've been on a lower carb type diet, like for example, right now, I'm approximately 39 hours into my 36-hour fast. Oh, wow. So, and I feel fine. It's like I'm not lightheaded or anything. And one part of me says, hey, I could push it through to 48 hours, but I'm saying, I got to hit the gym, so I'm going to have to break my fast here sometime after we're done here. It's you're saying, like, as far as this bonking thing, I mean, I can really totally relate to it. And I wouldn't call it so much. I would call it, when I was on a higher carb diet, I'd get hangry. I'd be like angry. And it'd be like, I mean, I could attack a full bag of Doritos or a whole bunch of chips or cookies. I could eat the whole thing and I feel stuffed. And then an hour later, I could be stuffed and still hungry. I mean, did either of you guys ever experience that?
You're talking about the spike of blood sugar. When I would eat the cookies or, like you say, chips that may have sugar and high fructose corn syrup put into almost everything that comes in a bag. The blood sugar is dropping when you're getting hungry. You're getting the signal you need to eat something. Go hunt and gather. So I'd go look for the cookies or the chips. The blood sugar comes up, but then the sucrose very quickly is metabolized and makes this spike. And this spike from refined sugar then will also lead to a crash. And then the crash, I would also experience the angry kind of, I got to eat something right away feeling.
I don't really have much to add to that, other than yes, like this is the very thing that I was telling when I was doing training, I would really be steering my clients away from. Being that I would tell them, like, the more simple sugar you consume, the higher your insulin secretion is, and it's something that with complex carbohydrates like beans, and other things that we can get into, like beans and rice, things of that nature. But having those, there's a long, consistent release of your insulin that's very gradual, and so it keeps the blood sugar very stable. And when there's an influx of very simple sugar that goes into the body, the insulin levels really go up in an effort to offset that increase in sugar. And then because there's a flood of insulin there, then your blood sugar tanks very quickly. And that's what leads to these spikes and crashes in energy that you were alluding to, with stuffing yourself with simple sugar or cookies, and then having this sudden crash, being hungry again, wanting to spike your blood sugar again. So this is something that we, in our efforts, we really want to seek to avoid. And sounds, Robert, you'd say you're taking steps to really counter this, and you've obviously noted the benefit as a result.
One of the interesting things that separates sugar in a cookie or in a cake, this refined sugar product, very quickly is raising the blood sugar when it's consumed. In contrast, if you have an apple or carrots or other things, it's a natural sugar that is metabolized differently, and because it's bound to water and fiber, it's more slowly raising the blood sugar, so it's a healthier way to have the energy that you need.
Simon, you're a nutritionist, so I just want to kind of bounce things, because where I'm going, I'm tending nowadays to eat a lot of whey protein. I like my scrambled eggs with cheese. My favorite go-to lunch is like a steak and eggs. Okay? Now, I'm also looking that I'm bringing in various vegetables. I'm looking at sauerkraut, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach. But what I'm thinking in my mindset is, for me, I'm thinking that I have a relationship with the bacteria in my gut. So I'm figuring I want to eat various vegetables to feed my gut, okay, create butyric acid and keep my gut happy. But for me, I want to eat my steak and eggs, or similar type proteins, whey shakes, whatever. And I would just like, and I take in fish oils, and I take shots of olive oil. And I just like your thoughts. No one's going to have a perfect diet. But would you say that, how close to being on the right track am I going?
I would say, quite honestly, you're very close to that. I think additionally adding some fermented foods. I think kimchi is one. When you talk about you're having cabbage and
Yes.
cruciferous vegetables, I think kimchi is a great thing to add
Yeah.
to your meat. I think adding. I saw Robert the other night at the Toastmasters meeting that he was drinking a bottle of kombucha, and it's actually one of the favorite brands that I prefer myself. But really, consuming foods that help to promote a good bacterial flora in the gut. These things really do help to improve your digestion and metabolism. So when you do have your dense proteins, your whey proteins, the supplements you take in, you're more efficiently able to absorb them because your gut microbiome is more geared up to properly metabolize the foods and get the most nutritional benefits from those foods that you're eating. I think anytime you're eating a lot of vegetables, a lot of, especially cruciferous vegetables, but then having additional greens like favorites of mine, like often kale, collard, and spinach. I consume these on an almost daily basis. And this I have found is being great to assist with my digestion, getting the most benefit from the food that I'm consuming, and really adding to one thing we haven't really touched on, but really with the gut microbiome being like that, really adding to one's immunity and your ability for your body to formulate its immune responses. So this is another thing that I think research is pointing in the direction of the gut microbiome really being a part of our immune system and really promoting immune system, which again goes back to health span and lifespan that we alluded to here.
Yeah. So, guys, we've been going for quite a while, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you. So, any last thoughts? Robert, we'll start with you, and then Simon.
We're living in a time when medical care needs to evolve and have a different shift in how we view the human body and how we view longevity. Instead of just sick care, dying care, and illness care, there needs to be a thought about how to move toward well care, which involves prevention, diet, exercise, sleep.
I think what we've also touched on here is that there, just by our discussion of some very basic nutrition approaches, that there are simple steps that you can take to changing your diet that will really add to lifespan and health span. I think there are changes that you can make that will increase the odds of you not having a lot of these complex medical complications that I know Dr. Robert here is frequently seeing, and that I certainly saw as in my time as a personal trainer, and am seeing on an increased level now with our nursing home population.
Okay. And in closing, at this point, I'm age 65. These next few decades are my time, and I want to be healthy. I want to be able to do things. I've actually found purpose. One of my purposes is to help. An example of one purpose that I have is I want to teach good people like most of you, there's a few bad ones out there, but most of you, how to protect yourselves from bad people. But how can I do that if I'm crippled, if I'm disabled? God forbid if I'm in a nursing home. I want to be an asset to my children. My children are busy raising my grandkids. They don't need to be taking care of me. I mean, if they had to take care of me, they have a hard enough time raising their children, much less taking care of dear old dad. So, hey, guys, I really want to thank you for being here. This was awesome. And till next time, signing off, Nikki, have a great day. Thank you.